My name is Clay Williams, and this is People Talks, presented by Canal Pursuit Productions. The idea behind People Talks is that everyone has a story, and everyone's story has value. We talk with people who have lived experience and people working in the fitness and mental health fields, one speaker each week. This week's speaker is Josh Martin, a registered massage therapist, an innovative practitioner, head athletic trainer for the Peterborough Lakers Lacrosse Team, and author. Josh specializes in peak performance rehabilitation and injury recovery. As a massage therapist since 2004, he's been honored and privileged to work among some of the world's top athletes, coaches, and practitioners. Through years of academic and hands-on experience, he's propelled to the front of the field and the go-to practitioner for most local athletes and community individuals. Along with his credentials as a clinical massage therapist and acupuncturist, Josh has been the head trainer of the Peterborough Lakers Lacrosse Team since 2011, having won 4 Mann Cup championships, working with some of the world's top lacrosse players. Josh has also worked with the Canadian national men's 15 rugby team, the Minnesota Swarm, now Georgia, in the NLL, as a therapist with the core medical team of the Canadian National Beach Volleyball Championships, and has worked several local and provincial sporting events. Personally, Josh is a proud father of 5, yes, 5 amazing kids, and is a very part-time musician in his limited spare time. Recently, Josh has taken his approach to therapy and rehabilitation, along with years of personal and professional experience as a dad and entrepreneur, many struggles and failures, and has begun to transition into an author, content creator, and personal/business coach. His new book, What is Next, and business venture, wordsherpa.ca, will bring a fresh perspective to achieving life's goals and visions through a raw, intimate, and vulnerable approach not seen by most. This unique design allows readers and clients to truly experience positive change in their daily lives. Josh, welcome to People Talks.
Thank you very much, Clay. It's nice to be here.
I'm glad we were able to connect.
Yes.
A friend of mine saw your book and said, Clay, you need to connect with Josh. So give us kind of a background. I'll ask a really open question.
Sure.
Who are you and what are you doing here? What led you to what you're doing right now?
Oh goodness. I mean, the biggest thing I think that led me to where I am right now, as far as sort of being a therapist and dealing with athletes and stuff, is my involvement with sports at a young age. I played a lot of sports growing up, high school, football, volleyball, soccer, you name it, and spent a lot of time in a rehab facility. I was injured quite a bit. So there was a few bumps and bruises along the way. So I got to learn what the inside of a physiotherapist office and that looked like quite intimately. So that kind of piqued my interest. My dad is a paramedic, or was a paramedic. He's retired now, for 40 plus years in Peterborough here. So that sort of medical, the medical blood kind of courses through my veins a little bit. So it was one of those things that I always wanted to do, was be involved somehow in rehab with athletes sort of ever since I was in high school.
All right. I think one of the things that we talk about pretty often, and I'm sure you're aware of this based on the little that I haven't read your book, unfortunately, not
That's
yet.
All right.
But the little that I know about it, there's a mind-body connection that's more than just the physical part of peak performance.
Absolutely.
I think you're looking at addressing that, and almost certainly have addressed that. How does that mind-body connection play out in your regular work?
It's a big part of what we do. It's funny. In school, when we're learning, all our different techniques and massage and things like that, especially in the massage therapy world, they tend to shy away a little bit from that that corner of the day-to-day with our clients.
Yeah, because there's a physical health and there's a mental health, and they're two
Yeah,
separate things, sort of, right?
they kind of treat it as we're not mental health practitioners. We work with the physical body, we work with injuries, we work with stress and all that kind of stuff, but they are so intertwined. It's you can't separate the two, and it's one of those things that I think as therapists, when we get out into the real world, we kind of go, oh my goodness, like I don't know whether or not we're overly prepared to deal with just how much we are going to hear, how much people are going to trust us, what people are coming in with. And so I remember my first ever sort of real experience dealing with sort of that mind-body connection was a client. I was in my first year out, so pretty new practitioner, pretty green, and I really haven't dealt with too much. And I was working with a chiropractor at the time who referred this woman who was in a car accident. And so she was a motor vehicle accident client, so pretty bad whiplash and things like that. And get her, do the whole health history, do the initial interview and that sort of thing, and start working on I think it was shoulders, just kind of working some tension in through the shoulders and going like, man, you're like really tight. And she started talking and started saying, I'm not sure whether or not the chiropractor has told you about my accident. And I said, no, she just said that you were in a car accident. And she said, well, I lost my 2-year-old in this car accident. And like, I wasn't a father yet at that time. And very new therapist, almost didn't know what to say. But the release in the tension in her shoulders when she finally just, said what was, this is why I'm so, so tight, it was palpable. It was, you could literally, I mean, I'm feeling it, the release that she had, and I'm going, oh my goodness, like, and that was, right off the bat in my career going, there's a huge connection here. And it's, I would say it's almost stronger when you start to deal with athletes too, when you start to deal with, especially the higher level athletes that come in, they're here because they might be injured. And that injury is playing with, am I ever going to be healthy again? Am I ever going to be able to compete at this level again? Am I ever going to be,
especially professional athletes, right?
So you start to realize the power of not just, what I do with my hands and in the therapy world, but the power of your words when you're talking to these athletes, when you're, discussing the timeline of their injury, their recovery and things like that. And so there's a big part of the mind and mind body connection there. That really is quite huge in our industry, that unfortunately, like I said, I don't think they prepare us as much for it as they should. But it's definitely quite powerful when you start to really kind of focus in on it as a practitioner.
Yeah, one of my earlier guests was actually a couple people in that are developing a business, developing a therapy, let's say, or a program that is designed for a professional athlete or a peak athlete to work on those small improvements at the top of an already really good game. And so much of it is the mental aspect of reacting to your environment, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And engaging with your environment. And one of them is a professional soccer player, and exactly what you were saying, when there's an injury, there's all of the worries and stresses and concerns that come along with that, right? Yeah, and I think you really touched on something that's that I've talked about in a few introductions to People Talks. There's everyone has a story, and there's value in those stories. There's value in telling the story and value in listening to the story, right?
Oh, absolutely.
People have a story of those people who have a story of a struggle or a burden or something that they're carrying inside. When that story is told, then it's something that's out in the open and can be addressed and talked about and looked at a little bit differently than when it's hidden and their own, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have a day-to-day practice as well, or?
Yep, yep. So yeah, I'm every day practice massage therapist in Peterborough at Hybrid Health and Rehab.
Okay.
Here, yeah, it's inside a fitness facility. It's inside Hybrid Fitness,
Okay.
which is which is one of the main sort of private fitness facilities here in Peterborough. They work with a lot of, like I said, sort of the higher end athletes. Here is where we're very fortunate that we get to deal with. The Peterborough Petes are
Right.
come in, and here the Peterborough Lakers, that sort of thing. Sort of the higher level athletes are involved in the fitness facility here as well as the rehab center. So.
All right. Yeah, I was thinking of talking about your budding music career, but if it's anything like my saxophone playing, it's better left in the garage.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that it's I always said that the massage therapy thing was a backup to my rock stardom.
Okay.
But clearly, I'm still a massage therapist, so the rock stardom thing is still remains to be seen. So.
Yeah.
Maybe one day, we'll see.
But it sounds like you're going through some changes or some development in some other areas.
Yeah.
The book, when was that published?
The book was actually released, I think it was about 3 days before the world shut down. So if I could say anything to anybody who's thinking of becoming an author, not during a global pandemic is probably not the best time to release a book, but I mean, hindsight, right? So,
yeah.
but we never saw that coming anyway. So, yeah. But no, the book, the book was released in March last year, and it's one of those. It's pretty vulnerable, is what I'll say. It's a lot of life lessons learned along the way of entrepreneurship, fatherhood, struggles. I have unfortunately separated, marriage separation. So there's a lot of things sort of involved in sort of my own story. And that's kind of where the book kind of came out of. It's really based around is sort of the title's What's Next, or What Is Next, which is, back in 2017, the lacrosse team that I work with, the Peterborough Lakers, we were top team in the league coming out of the regular season. I think we had maybe lost one game, and we found ourselves down 2-0 against the worst place team in the league when it came to the playoffs. And this was the first round, and there were, it was one of those things where there's fights in the locker room. There's, players arguing with coaches arguing with players, and I'm the trainer. I'm the head trainer. So I'm the guy that tapes all the ankles and tapes the wrists and then sits on the bench and waits for somebody to go down and then, goes and fixes them up and that sort of thing. So I kind of sit back and I observe more than anything. And so obviously I'm not going to get involved in the arguing and the coaching and all that kind of stuff, but it was really neat to see. It's kind of a movie moment is what I like to say. It's kind of one of those things where you get some goosebumps sort of thing when you're involved in it, where the coaching staff and the captains took a weekend and they said, we got to figure this out. Like, what's going on here? And so they needed the team to really buy into to a system that they just weren't buying into, and that's why we were losing these games. So they came back and they said, guys, we want to win, right? We want WIN, we want to win. And we want to look at this and we're going to say, what is next? And so when the way that they looked at it is they go, we want to win the championships. We want to win the Man Cup. That's our goal. But we have to win this series first. before we can do that, but in order to win the series, we got to win a game, and in order to win that game, we have to win each period. And in order to win each period, we got to win each shift. And so it became this mantra for the team where, guys were coming, they'd go on the floor for their 30 seconds to 2-minute shift or whatever. And they'd come back and the coach would be going, okay, what's next? What did you do that worked really well? What did you do that didn't work so well, and how can you improve on it? What can we do? It became about trusting the guy next to you. It became about trusting your coaches because they've been there before. And they have a better vantage point. They can see what's going on. So, it became this shift in perspective, and guys were writing it on their helmets. They were writing it on the ends of their sticks. WIN. And it became this thing that every time a guy was coming off, it was okay, guys. What's next? What's next? What's next? And from my little perch that I stand on, you could see this shift. And guys were starting to trust each other, and the game started to change, and we went on and we won the next 4 games straight. We beat the next the next team 4 games straight. We went on and won the Man Cup, I think, in 5 games, and that was 2017. And we did the same in 2018, and we did the same in 2019. So it luckily, because I don't think if we would have won, then the book probably wouldn't have been written, but it just goes to show that there was a lot of power in sort of taking these small little steps. And so for me, that was really, because like I said, I'm not in it, I'm watching it. And so for me, I'm going, okay, 2017 was a rough year for me. Like I said, going through, marriage separation. I've got 5 kids. I'm trying to figure life out. My business was not doing so well. I was in a heap load of debt. I was, trying to figure all this stuff out. And I'm going, okay, what is next? What can I do? What's my next step, and just looking at the next step and the next step to get to where I want to be personally. And so yeah, that's kind of where the book was birthed out of, and looking at my own struggles with mental health and depression and anxiety and addiction and things like that, and how to overcome those by looking at sort of that little steps of what is next, right? It's that analogy of looking at a ladder too, right? When you look at a ladder, if the rungs are so far apart, it's really hard to scale the ladder. But if you take each step as it comes, you get there faster, you get there, safer. And so that's kind of where the book came from. So
yeah, that's an interesting approach. I kind of see a parallel to mindfulness, right?
Absolutely.
Kind of recognizing where you are right now and what's directly in front of you, not the long-term goal way down. You can still kind of see that, right? But you need to know what that first step is going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, that kind of a micro breakdown of the plan, right?
Yeah. And I found that writing for me, the book, I didn't even really think of writing a book right away. It was one of those. I had there's a Starbucks right across from my office, which it's if anybody who knows me knows that coffee is my it's my Achilles heel. And so every time, there was evenings when I didn't have my kids, it was my night, not to have the kids. I would work until 8 o'clock or so, and I would just walk over to Starbucks and just sit and write. Whether or not I was writing a blog, whether or not it was writing just my thoughts, just journaling something. And so I did that for a long time because I felt like that was really, that was my coping mechanism to dealing with what I was going through, was to just get it out, not necessarily with the intention of actually releasing anything. But it became kind of, looking at the blog that I had going, kind of going, I could maybe put this together, kind of package it a little differently. So, yeah, it was. So for me, that was a big help for me. in dealing with what I was going through as
Yeah.
far as the mental health aspect of things. So
Yeah, there's kind of a catharsis in
Yeah.
getting that out, like you say, even if there's not an audience for it, but just getting it out and yeah, just that process of a little bit of introspection and a little bit of self-discovery, right?
Exactly.
So how is your day-to-day work, other than destroying team sports, but how did your day-to-day work change during the COVID thing, or have you seen a shift in say mental attitude or something over the past year?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we were off for the first 4 months of COVID. We weren't allowed to work,
Right.
which was tough in itself. That's hard for me personally. I know there were some people that I knew that were like, woo, time off, sort of thing, and I'm going, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 days would be okay, but 4 months and I was going crazy.
Yeah.
So that alone was very difficult. But when we were allowed to come back, we were deemed essential. We were legislated as essential healthcare, so that when further lockdowns or things like that happened, we weren't worried about losing work. It was just a matter of, are people going to come in? Obviously, we don't have team sports, so we don't have the athletic population, but we're not exclusive. We definitely will have anybody who wants to come in. So that was in and of itself, trying, because again, it was one of those things where, from week to week, you have no idea if people are going to come in or how is business going to be. And it's still kind of that way. It's still very unpredictable, I would say, as far as the business aspect of it. As far as the clientele goes, you can notice that the attitudes of clients is, and the mental state of clients is definitely not as high as in previous years. And it's funny because I find it hard to comment on the state of the lockdowns and all this kind of stuff because I'm working. I find it difficult to say anything, but because I'm working as well, it has its own challenges. It has its own, how many conversations do I have a day about COVID, about vaccines and about, politics and about all this kind of stuff. And so it's mentally draining at the end of the day, for myself after, if I've just seen, 10 clients and I've had 10 conversations about COVID and I've had 10 conversations about, the state of the world. At the end of the day, it feels heavy, and being in this industry as healthcare workers, we're very empathetic. We're, probably overly empathetic, most of us. And so we really take that in, these conversations, and especially when you're talking to people who, they might not have work right now, or they have relatives that have had COVID, or there's whatever issues might be going on with their mental health. Like, you feel it, like you really do. And I feel like it's not my job to take that away from them, obviously. It's technically really not my job to comment on it, but it's my job to listen. It's my job to be that sounding board, to be the person that they're trusting in the moment, to verbalize whatever they're feeling. And so it's been a little extra draining that way, emotionally and mentally, I think, in our field of work. And I think I could probably speak for most of us that are kind of feeling that way, that sort of burnout, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's I think a lot of people are feeling there's a little added stress because of the uncertainty, right? We don't know what the future looks like, so that adds a little pee under the mattress that makes you
Yeah.
uncomfortable all the time. One of the things you talked about is in far different words than this, but that's not my job. So the mental health aspect
Yeah.
is definitely not part of um, your normal scope of practice. But
No, exactly.
when I started calling myself a mental health advocate a few years ago, people were comfortable enough with me to open up to me,
Oh yeah.
as people open up to you. And like you, I was kind of afraid to to say something wrong,
No, exactly. Yeah.
or to say nothing at all. If I'm saying nothing at all, is that a bad thing? But I learned after a little while that just being an ear, a sympathetic, trustworthy ear,
Yeah.
to listen has a lot of merit, right? Has a
Oh,
lot of
absolutely.
value,
Sure does.
for sure. Yeah. So anyone who's listening, if someone opens up to you, be that trustworthy
Yeah.
person. You know, we talk about, if you're in a dark place, talk to someone you trust.
Yeah.
And the someone you trust is not always an easy, or not always simple to find, right? So
No, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So moving forward, at the
Mhm.
end of the COVID pandemic in a month or 2 years, or
Or whenever.
whenever that
Yeah.
is, what is the future hold for Josh? Will you continue as an RMT, or as a trainer? What's
That's
your
a
ideal vision here?
Gosh, that's a fantastic question. I would like to go back to that musician thing, but no, I don't think that's going to happen. No, I mean, I love what I do. I can see myself doing this for a long time still. Provided my hands allow me to. It's been 17 years now. Actually, be 17 in about 3 days that I've been a massage therapist. So it's a long time. It's a physical job. So yeah, it wears down on you a bit. But I do I can see myself still being involved in this line of work. Whether it's the hands-on end of things, whether it's administrative, whether on it's management, that sort of thing of healthcare practices or whatever it might be. I definitely feel like this is where I'm meant to be. The writing and the content creation and the book and things like that is I think for me it's something that I really enjoy. It's something that has definitely helped me, in my journey, and it's something that I'd like to continue doing. If somebody offers me a book deal, I may take it, that sort of thing. Like, if there's anybody listening that, has a publishing company or anything like that. I mean,
we'll spread this around for you.
yeah, fair enough. But no, it's kind of one of those things, kind of wait and see what happens and see what comes. I'm very much a go with the flow type of guy. Which is funny because change kind of scares me a little bit, but so for the foreseeable future anyway, this is kind of where I plan to be. The hybrid family here is fantastic. It's a group of practitioners, trainers, that are just it's beyond words how incredible they all are, and so it's one of those things that I want to be a part of this group and this family for as long as I possibly can, because I know they've certainly helped me out, a great deal, probably more than they know, and so yeah, no, I think healthcare is kind of, like I said, sort of always in my blood, and I think it's probably something I'm going to be doing for a while. I live vicariously through a lot of the athletes that I treat, and working with the lacrosse team and stuff like that too is something that I've definitely missed for the past 2 years. It's one of those things, but I think that'll be something and that will continue for a while. I can't see myself leaving that position anytime soon either. So.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you're in your zone there, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is good.
yeah, yeah. Um, you mentioned a couple times
Mhm.
struggles with depression, anxiety.
Yep,
Are you okay to talk about that?
certainly,
Yeah.
for sure. It's a part of my
Um,
story. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What has that looked like over the years? Is it something recent?
It's kind of a constant battle.
Mm,
I think a few years ago it was much worse.
mm,
There was some very dark times in my life. Suicidal thoughts and
mm,
things like that, and even a time of driving down the road and parking next to a bridge and thinking
mm,
I really don't have much to live for. At the time, the things were struggling, like I said, with my marriage, and I, yeah, the only thing that really kept me going and really does keep me going still is my kids.
mm,
They're sort of my world, and they're what I live for and strive for and wake up for every day. So
mm,
super thankful for them. They definitely I don't think they quite know
mm.
sort of what they mean, that sort of thing. But as long as they keep still saying I love you, then that's good for me.
All right.
But no, it's definitely a battle every day. Like I said, there's a lot of days where I go home from work and I'm heavy. Like there's a
Mm,
weight, and a lot of times it's like I said, like a lot of times it used to be I couldn't really explain it. It was hard to really figure out why, and I tried the medications, and I did, and I still do counseling and all that kind of stuff. I can't say enough about talking to somebody
mhm.
about that sort of thing, and I've got some really close friends that well, every once in a while I get a text from how you doing,
Mm.
and I know that I can be open and honest with them and that sort
Right.
of
Yeah,
thing.
give
So
an honest answer to that question,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Instead of the guarded one, right?
exactly. Because I know that those are the people that when you get a text from them, they actually genuinely mean how are you,
Yeah.
as in, and that's and so I find that, yeah, I still battle with anxiety is a big one for me. I'm not the most patient person. So when I look at the future, things like
Mm-hmm.
that, or looking what's coming down the pipe, or things like with business, or and I look at the bank account, or I look at all these kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
and the heart starts to race a little bit, and even before, I have to be careful because, I've developed high blood pressure and things like that. So, I
Mm-hmm.
was in and out of the hospital 3 times, a few years back, making sure the ticker was okay
Mm-hmm.
because, it was high. My blood pressure was so high that, they were worried that my heart was in failure and all that sort of thing. So,
Right. Yeah, especially with anxiety, that seems to
yeah.
accentuate that, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it's like I said, it's something that I think that I've been through. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the worst of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the triggers. I can see the
Mm-hmm.
and how to cope.
Right.
Easier and things like that. And like I said, it's one of those things that is a constant battle, but to be aware, because I've been through some pretty harsh stuff. I've helped some
Mm-hmm.
others through some pretty harsh stuff. It really it has been a little easier, thankfully, through through COVID and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I was still in the thick of my depression and anxiety and that sort of thing, I think things would be a lot worse.
That could put you in a
Um,
very bad place for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So it's yeah, like I said, it's and I think anybody who has dealt with anxiety and depression and things like that in the past, I think they can attest to the fact that it's one of those things that's always with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be there, but it's recognizing, um, the triggers, recognizing how to deal with them, recognizing how you deal with them personally,
Right.
and being able to talk to people, right,
Mm-hmm.
are the big ones.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So the more times you go through a downward spiral, or let's say an episode. The more times you are at those starting stages of something dark,
Yeah.
the more easily you recognize it, um, and are able to maybe see that a little bit from the outside, and do something before you get to the place where you don't want to do anything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about, or you talked about, and a couple of things that I'd like to talk about to people about is the time between knowing you've got a problem, or that you're really struggling with depression or anxiety, and getting help, professional help, or opening up to someone else. What did that look like for you? Do you recall? Was it one particular thing and you reached out, or
Goodness, that was yeah, it was kind of a culmination of things. Unfortunately for me, it involved some addiction. For me, it was kind of alcohol. I got sick pretty quick with that one, and realized that I didn't want to do that. But unfortunately for me, it also turned to gambling. That was another addiction that I suffered with. And it's one of those things that is again, when I say that there's a constant struggle, it's one of those things that is constantly there, and and again, it's like I said, sort of recognizing the triggers and all that kind of stuff with it. But so for me, that was I guess sort of realizing there was a problem there when and it wasn't one of those things where I lost my house, or I lost my vehicle, or I don't have one of those stories, that sort of thing. But debt was becoming hard to pay off, things like that. And every day was becoming a struggle and stuff. And so it was a matter of for me, it was just a matter of recognizing, and then I needed to talk to somebody. So I went through the addictions counseling.
This has gone far enough. I've got to reach out.
Yeah. And realizing I wasn't happy, even though, it was hard to be happy when you're going through everything that I was going through at the time. Like I said, with the separation and being on my own and all this kind of stuff, and everything that goes along with that. And it was very difficult. It was very trying. And I couldn't find any happiness in my day at all. Even when I was with my kids, that was I think one of the big things that I really noticed was that I'm when I'm dad, I want to be happy. I want to be present. I want to be there for my kids. And I felt like I wasn't. I felt like I was distant. I was just unhappy. I was zero patience. You want to talk about no patience? I didn't have any whatsoever. And when you have 5 kids, you need a little bit of patience. So, yeah. So, and I found that was, I think, one of the big things for me, was definitely going, when I realized just how miserable I was, and how miserable I was making others, and knowing that I needed help for sure. And again, the marriage separation and stuff like that too was one of those things that was a component of it. And so that was also it was just the culmination of everything. That really I knew I needed help. And so and I knew it was going to be a long road. And like I said, it's and it has been, and so it's but it definitely it definitely came to a head. That like I said, I think the biggest thing was recognizing that I just I wasn't happy, and if I'm not happy, my kids aren't happy.
Right. And there has to be something done. Yeah. So what have you found a couple or one? I always try to look for little tidbits or little glimmers of hope. Is there a little tool, mindfulness, meditation, yoga? Is there something that helps you when you start seeing that, when you start looking down the well?
There's a couple of things for me. Either writing is a big one for me.
Okay.
Like I said, journaling, anything to just kind of get some words out is a big one. But because we can't sit in stores anymore, can't go to Starbucks and sit for a bit. I can't really do that as much as I used to. I find walking is a big thing for me. Walking with a podcast or music or something is big for me. I'm not a runner. Sorry. Running's not my thing. So going out for a jog just isn't, one of those things. Obviously when the gym was open here, it was good to come in and lift some weights and that sort of thing, but anything's kind of physical, right? I find, but I find for me walking just around my neighborhood, that sort of thing. Like I said, usually podcasts are the things I enjoy listening to a little bit more. Music I have to be careful with because again, I find lyrics and words and things like that you can really gravitate and hold on to, and there's some depressing music out there, and when you're in a specific mood or things like that, and you reach for that or angry music or the depressing stuff or whatever, it might not help. You might actually end up worse off when you get home than you were when you left. So that's why I find sort of podcasts or a little more lighthearted stuff, a little bit more helpful, or books. I do a lot of audiobooks too.
Oh, okay.
So anything kind of plug my ears and listen to something. I'm not very good at silence. That's one of those things that I've always got to have something going in my ears because I think the self-talk is a big problem for me too. That sort of negative loop of self-talk and kind of all that kind of stuff is a big one. I think for a lot of people.
If there's not something external, there's going to be something generated internally, right?
And it's usually not the best. So I definitely will gravitate to books or podcasts or things like that when I'm out on a walk.
All right. Cool. Yeah, disconnect and change scenery, flip side, something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Not running, eh? Well, we can work on that.
Sorry. Well, maybe. We'll see. I fix a lot of runners, so I see the
Well, we're notorious for not stretching anything.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I think there's a stat that says 100% of all runners end up injured or something like that. So
and I've been at it long enough. I don't have many scars, but I know all the names for all the running injuries. Let's put it that way.
No doubt.
Cool. I've that's all that I've got to on my list of things to ask you about. Is there anything you wanted to cover as we wrap up?
I don't know. I mean, I guess if anybody's in the Peterborough area, you can look me up.
Yeah, for sure. I'll put it. I'll be sure to put your credentials at the end. No
I appreciate that.
But, so by the way,
this has been great. That's very cool.
Yeah, I'm glad we had the chance to talk, and I think.
No, I know very much so.
You're not the only empathetic healthcare practitioner that I've talked to. As you said off the top, it's something that's a pretty common thing. So which side of the brain is the practical, logical side, left or right? I always forget. But whichever side that
It's the
is. Uh, yeah,
left, I believe. I think. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's the right side's the emotional, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't have a right side.
So I think I've got a giant right side, and yeah.
Yeah, I've got all the left side, and so that empathy,
Fair enough.
non-verbal communication, it's just not communication for me at all. But
Not so
anyway,
much.
I really appreciate the time that you put aside. I know you're a pretty busy guy,
Thank you.
pandemic and all. With 5 kids, you've got to be a really
Oh
busy
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your time and
Thank
sharing your
you.
story with us. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Clay. I appreciate it.
All right.